You're going to have to excuse me first if I wear a cap, because I have an eye problem and I can't bear the light. All sorts of memories come to me being here. The first, of course, being how often Whiston himself talked and recited poetry in this very place. He always read from his own memory. He had a prodigious memory. And I remember on one occasion, in the middle of a conversation, he just quoted an entire page from the American Scene. I have a feeling that he knew the whole book by heart. Auden's birthday was on February the 21st, and I was sort of hoping that tonight would have been on February the 21st. But he loved birthdays and birthday parties, celebrations, and one never missed one of those. I met Auden in the late 1960s. I was introduced, as was Charles Rosen, by his friend Auden Fox. The first time I saw him, I was too shy to say anything, but I just gazed at that Jurassic face with awe. Later we got talking on subsequent occasions, and sometimes he would invite me to his apartment in St. Mark's Place for tea. Tea was at 4 sharp, and drinking, as you heard, started at 5 sharp. So one had just an hour. We talked about all sorts of things. One of them was medicine. Whiston's father, George Auden, had been a medical officer of health at Birmingham in England and had been one of the pioneer describers of the sleepy sickness, the encephalitis lethargica. And on one occasion, I brought Whiston along to Beth Abraham Hospital. This is the hospital where the Awakenings patients lived, and he was very fascinated at seeing the sorts of patients whom his father had studied for many years. He was particularly fascinated by the way that some of these speechless patients could sing, and some of these motionless patients could dance, and he quoted an aphorism of Novalis to me: "Every disease is a musical problem, every cure is a musical solution." And that has been in my mind ever since. I had never published anything at that point, but I think Whiston must have discerned some grains of literary potential, and one way and another he influenced the writing of my first 2 books very much indeed, and influenced me in a sort of subversive way to get out of or beyond all sorts of medical canons and speak freely in any mode I wanted. I'm going to sort of reminisce for another minute or two, and then I'm going to read a poem. Talking about poems, Whiston was extremely thoughtful and would often send me all sorts of things if he thought I was interested. When he knew I was interested in migraine and headache, he sent me in his own handwriting, he copied out a poem by Dunbar on his headache, a sort of beautiful 16th century Scottish dialect. I think it's 16th century. I was always very excited when I got letters of that unique handwriting. They were fairly formal at first. I was Dr. Sachs and he was Mr. Auden for the first 3 years of our acquaintance. And it was only, in fact, in 1971 when he sent me the typescript of a poem which he dedicated to me, and after the typescript there was a short letter in which he said, "Dear Oliver, if I may." So this was a different generation. One didn't get into first names straight away. One took 2 or 3 years to do so. Although some of this may have had to do with the fact that he was shy, and I think I was as well. He gave his last reading here, as you heard, in March of 72. That was a month after his 65th birthday. And then in April, he left for Oxford. Auden and I helped him pack all his books, although he gave a lot of them away. He gave me a copy of the Magic Flute libretto, which he and Chester Kallman had done. He also gave me a copy of Goethe's letters, full of annotations in his own microscopic handwriting. I mean Auden's microscopic handwriting. I wish it had been Goethe's as well. When I visited him in Oxford in February of 73, it was a beautiful day, and instead of taking a cab from the station, I walked, which meant that I was late. And Auden was there swinging a pocket watch like a censer. And he said, "You're late. You're 12 and a half minutes late." And fortunately, I was forgiven. As Charles said, he was very obsessed by questions of punctuality. When we went to the airport, when he was leaving, he arrived at the airport 3 hours early, and he told me of a repetitive dream he had, in which he dreamt that he had a train to catch, that everything depended on it. The world would end if he didn't catch this train. All sorts of obstructions occurred. He became more and more anxious. And then he saw that the train was steaming and had already left, and that it was too late, and he would wake up with an orgasm and a smile on his face. One final thing before I read the poem. Charles has again spoken of Auden's enormous vocabulary, but the fact that he never invented words. One of the things which deeply moved me after his death was to get a copy of his poems, Thank You, Fog, and to find there at least 2 words, volunt and festination, which I'd used repeatedly in Awakenings. He was the only man, apart from my publisher, to see the manuscript, and I somehow felt this was a sort of hail and farewell from beyond the grave. Well, I'm no great poetry reader, but since I'm supposed to do so, I will do my best with this poem, Talking to Myself, which, as I say, he dedicated to me. Spring this year in Austria started off benign, the heavens lucid, the air stable, the about sane to all feeders, vegetate or bestial. The deathless minerals looked pleased with their regime, where what is not forbidden is compulsory. Shadows, of course, there are, porn ads, with it clergy, and hubby next door's taken to the bottle. But you have preserved your poise, strange, rustic object, whom I, made in God's image but already warped, and malapert will worship, must bow to as me. My mortal manor, the carnal territory allotted to my manage, my fosterling too I must earn cash to support. My tutor also, but for whose neural instructions I could never acknowledge what is or imagine what is not. Instinctively passive, I guess, having neither fangs nor talons, nor hooves nor venom, and therefore too prone to let the sun go down upon your funk. A poor smeller, or rather a censor of smells, with an omnivore palate that can take hot food. Unpredictably, decades ago, you arrived among that unending cascade of creatures spewed from nature's maw. A random event, says science. Random, my bottom. A true miracle, says I, for who is not certain that he was meant to be? As you augmented and developed a profile, I looked at your looks askance. His architecture should have been much more imposing. I've been let down. By now, though, I've gotten used to your proportions, and all things considered, I might have fared far worse. Seldom have you been a bother. For many years you were, I admit, a martyr to horn colic. It did no good to tell you, but I'm not in love. How stoutly, though, you've repelled all germ invasions, but never chastised my tantrums with a megrim. You were the injured party, for if short-sighted, I am the bookworm who tired you. If short-winded, as cigarette addicts are, I was the pusher who got you hooked. Had we both been a bit younger, I might well have mischieved you worse with a needle. I'm always amazed at how little I know you. Your coasts and outgates I know, for I govern these. But what goes on inland, the rites, the social codes, your torrents, salt and sunless, remain enigmas. What I believe is on doctors' hearsay only. Our marriage is a drama, but no stage play where what is not spoken is not thought. In our theatre, all that I cannot syllable, you will pronounce in acts whose raison d'etre escapes me. Why secrete fluid when I dole, or stretch your lips when I joy? Demands to close or open, include or eject must come from your corner, and no province of mine. All I have done is to provide the timetable of hours when you may put them. But what is your work when I librate between a glum and a frolic? For dreams, I, quite irrationally, reproach you. All I know is that I don't choose them. If I could, they would conform to some prosodic discipline, mean just what they say. Whatever point nocturnal manias make, as a poet, I disapprove. Thanks to your otherness, your jocular concords, so unlike my realm of dissonance and anger, you can serve me as my emblem for the cosmos. For human congregations, though, as Hobbes perceived, the apposite sign is some ungainly monster. Whoever coined the phrase, the body politic, all states we've lived in, or historians tell of, have had shocking health, psychosomatic cases, physicked by sadists or glozing, expensive quacks. When I read the papers, you seem an Adonis. Time, we both know, will decay you, and already I'm scared of our divorce. I've seen some horrid ones. Remember, when le bon Dieu says to you, leave him, please, please, for his sake and mine, pay no attention to my piteous don'ts, but bugger off quickly.